Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to this webinar. My name is Karim Bazabachi. I'll be the organizer for this session. And with me, we have our presenter, Coetzee. Please make sure you have a stable internet connection, but don't worry, if you happen to get disconnected, you can log on the same way you did and everything will still be fine. There will also be a recording on the LMS system in case you've missed anything, and that recording will be available from 12 o'clock today. The duration of the session will be a maximum of 25 minutes, and we will answer questions either throughout the session or towards the end of the session, ending off at exactly 7:30. All right, that's it from my side. For now, I'd like to hand over to our presenter, Chris. Chris, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much, Karim. And once again, welcome to all of our attendees for the Toolbox Talk on a Tuesday morning. To start off with, IOPSA is inviting you to the Plumbing Industry Awards happening this month on the 28th at the Royal Elephant Hotel and Conference Center at 6 p.m. For more information on how to get into that or to be invited into that, please contact marketing@iopsa.org. Then our tips to continually prevent COVID-19, because today's whole Toolbox Talk is on COVID-19. Is it still valid? What happened with the regulations that were repealed just recently? And what are the current regulations that are still in place? So our tips to continually prevent COVID-19, as we've mentioned before, help us to prevent other diseases that plumbers are also exposed to. Washing your hands regularly is not just preventing COVID-19, but also prevents other bacteria that we might be exposed to, especially when working with plumbing. Now, if water is not available, we still encourage you to use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. If you haven't been able to wash your hands, please avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. And then where possible or where it's required, especially in some clients as well, some areas that we've gone into, specifically the mines. Many of you might not be working on the mines, but social distancing is still applicable at the mine industry. And then other companies have still taken it upon themselves based on their risk assessment to adhere to social distancing measures. And then if anybody is sick, please avoid contact with them because there could still be a potential of them being infected with COVID-19. Cover your cough and sneeze with a flexed elbow and then throw that tissue into the bin if you use one. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects. And I think we've mentioned this before, your tools that you are using. Many of us don't necessarily always have gloves with us. And if you are wearing gloves, then you've touched perhaps something else, maybe even some part of the plumbing that you're working with. If this has got hazardous biological agents on it or bacteria on the actual plumbing that we are working with, this is now on the glove. And then from the gloves, we are touching all our tools and equipment. So cleaning this, including our PPE, our gloves, our goggles, and everything else that we are wearing, also goes a long way in preventing other type of diseases. And then if you can, please get vaccinated, or if your company has made protocols for vaccination, please look at that. Now, when it comes to COVID-19, please remember it is an occupational disease. It has been regulated as an occupational disease. So as we go through this information today, please remember our safety thought. Do it because you want to, not because you have to. It becomes a lot easier, and it's not a grudge when you do it because you want to do it. When you have to do it, it always becomes such a pain, and nobody wants to do it because they have to do it. So we need to change our mentality around that. We need to change our attitude toward it. And in other words, we're trying to get to that behavior-based safety. In other words, we start thinking safe, we start acting safe because we really want to do that. And so that's what we want to encourage you to do today, especially with the information that we're going to be giving you. Now, on Wednesday, the 22nd of June, Regulation 16A, 16B, and 16C relating to the surveillance and control of COVID-19 basically was just repealed. So everybody was pretty excited. COVID-19 regulations such as the wearing of masks, limitations on gatherings, entry requirements for foreigners into South Africa were officially lifted on Wednesday, the 22nd. Now, many were celebrating this news, but please remember, some employees may still require you to wear a mask in the workplace. Now, why is that? Are they going against what legislation says? Are the protocols not actually lifted? What is actually going on? Why are some companies still requiring you to wear a mask while others say it's fine that you don't have to wear a mask? So let us just put you at ease straight away that these regulations that were issued on Wednesday, the 22nd, are in fact true. Regulation 16A, B, and C are definitely repealed. But please remember that these types of gazettes or government gazettes is there for the entire South African population. So this is a civil gazette. In other words, it's because the national state of disaster was lifted, and then the surveillance and control of notifiable medical conditions, that specific section, only that specific section, that's why it's mentioning regulations 16A, 16B, and 16C. The rest of the regulations are actually still in place. So this is what we actually want to discuss this morning. So yes, you don't have to wear masks in public. You don't have to have limitations on gatherings anymore. And foreigners are now allowed into South Africa. So why is there still the requirement to wear masks in certain workplaces? Well, it's because COVID-19 regulations are actually still in place. The repeal of the above regulations does not specifically direct all of this to employers at their workplaces. It's just a general regulation. So all employers still have an obligation in terms of the Occupational Health and Safety Act to provide, as far as reasonably practical, a safe working environment. Now, this is in accordance with Section 8 of the legislation. So employers still have an obligation to take a look at their risk management and see what they can do to make a safe working environment. And this is obviously in line with a code of practice. This code of practice is currently still in place. This is what has replaced our COVID regulations that we had back in 2019 and 2020. Managing exposure to SARS-CoV-2 in the workplace is what the current code of practice must be implemented for all companies. Then on top of that, because COVID-19 is actually an occupational disease, the hazardous biological agents regulations are also inclusive into our risk assessment. What does this mean? Well, when we do our legal register, and we've spoken about this before, perhaps you have a ladder that you are going to use on site. The OSH Act doesn't discuss ladders. It just tells you to make the workplace safe. So if we need to find out where we use ladders, we need to look at the scope of application. Are we using it just in general? Well, then our general safety regulations, section 13A, will then cover ladders. If we're using it in construction, well, then we have to look at fall protection planning, working on ladders, which is covered in regulation 10. So if we use a ladder at a specific scope, another regulation, a supporting regulation, will then back up the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So yes, you still fall under the OSH Act, but a supporting regulation is the Hazardous Biological Agents Regulation. This is currently being revised. In fact, we've got the latest updated version. So if you don't have this, please let us know. We want to give this information to you. The risk assessment is then designed off of your hazardous biological agents regulation. So in terms of these regulations, COVID-19 is classified as a group 3 hazardous biological agent. This presents a risk in respect of an agent or a biological agent that may cause severe human disease. So this presents as a serious hazard to exposed persons, and it may present a risk of spreading to the community. So why do we still have some companies or some clients of ours requiring us to continue wearing a mask? Well, where there is a risk of exposure to COVID-19 because of it falling into this group 3 hazardous biological agent, an employer must still conduct a further risk assessment before determining whether employees are no longer required to wear a mask, and then revise your current COVID-19 workplace plan. What does this actually mean? Well, the risk assessment is going to identify what is the level of exposure. You see, if we had to take appropriate measures within our risk assessment, what would that mean? For you, it might be something different to myself. Because I don't have a very large employee base, I don't have to wear masks because I'm more than a few hundred feet away from any person while I'm working in my office. Now, as part of the risk assessment, employers must ensure that employees' risk of exposure is limited through these appropriate workplace measures. Now, one of the main things that employers are starting to do is taking a look at vaccinations. But included in that is the wearing of masks. Due to the space between people, the amount of people that they are exposed to, the amount of people they have to see on a daily basis, and also because there is a potential for unknown. You're seeing so many clients going to private homes that you don't know the condition or the state of the people that you are seeing. So based on the risk assessment, it's either going to determine whether you are low risk, no need to wear a mask, medium risk, will probably wear a mask now and then, or a high risk, you have to wear a mask all the time. Now, included in some of these appropriate measures may still also be the practicing of social distancing or even sanitizing as well, because of the exposure levels. So these kinds of precautions that you see may be necessary, especially in workplaces where there's a high risk of COVID-19 transmission. And as we mentioned earlier, healthcare is still a very high area because people are coming to healthcare practitioners as ones who are already sick. And so because you're already sick, there is the potential to be exposed to a hazardous biological agent. In this case, it would be SARS-CoV-2 virus, which creates COVID-19. In the mining area, because they are exposed to so many people, they are also including, in fact, some mines are still in lockdown with COVID-19 regulations. So the full COVID-19 regulations are still in place at certain areas. Now, in other workplaces, the employer may still insist, based on a risk assessment, that employees continue to wear masks. Can you say that is going against your constitutional right because the repeal of the regulations is out? Well, no, you cannot. You see, the OSH Act supersedes the government gazette. And the reason for that is a government gazette or anything that is proposed by the government, if it is not an act, then it is a supporting document. So a regulation is a supporting document to the act, where the act is what supersedes legislation. So just because we had a repeal of that regulation in terms of COVID-19 doesn't necessarily say that the OSH Act itself becomes obsolete. The OSH Act is still in place. In fact, it's the main regulation, main act that we need to adhere to. So if you are working in large crowds, or if you're going to be exposed to a lot of people, then maybe the risk assessment will determine that you still need to wear a mask. You will notice that many companies that you are visiting at the moment, the reception area or the receptionist will still wear a mask when inviting people in. That is because they are exposed to almost every single visitor or subcontractor that comes onto the premises, while others working in and around that working environment have no need for wearing a mask because they are not exposed to that amount of people. So again, it's taking a look at appropriate measures to protect the health and safety of persons on site. So basically what we're saying is everybody has a responsibility still to ensure that they try and prevent COVID-19. Now, yes, we sent out a memo saying that you have masks are lifted. In fact, we even sent it out to our OPSA in order to send it out to all the members, stating that the repeal of these regulations means that you no longer have to wear a mask. But it is our suggestion, and that is just a suggestion from our side, is to take a look at what are the appropriate measures you will need to find if you're going to private homes. So we're not talking about your clients, we're talking specifically the private area, the private market that you as plumbers are going to be working at. The suggestion there was to still ask the homeowner whether they feel comfortable with you wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, depending on what your current risk assessment says. But based on what the owner says, we are asking you just to take that into consideration. Perhaps the owner of the house still feels scared because of COVID-19, or they are unaware of the current regulations or how it's working, and they still feel the need to wear a mask, or they want you to wear a mask while they are not wearing a mask. Well, the courteous thing to do would be to just allow them to have their opinion. And if they want you to wear a mask, please do so. And the reason for this is obviously you want to be shown as an industry leader, especially as our OPSA members. We want to be shown as industry leaders. We don't just want to go with the flow. We want to set the standard. So if you can assist us with that, give us the information, tell us where you are sitting at in terms of your risk assessment and what you are doing to encourage these responsibility as well as these appropriate measures that you are going to be taking. Now, as we mentioned, if you don't have a copy of the latest regulations, that is the COVID regulations, with the repeal that has been taken out of the regulation. So there's still, that was only 16 A, B, and C. There's other regulations within that, 1 to 15 that you must still adhere to, as well as the normal standard COVID-19 methodologies for all small businesses to implement, as well as the hazardous biological agents regulations that have been updated. Now, if you don't have copies of these, please send us an email, info@ohss.co.za or safety@iopsa.org. We will then send you copies of both of those current regulations for you to be able to use in your own companies. Now, on top of that, you do get free consulting. So if it's digital, send me a WhatsApp or an email on any questions that you might have based on this information. And I'll try and, to the best of my ability, get back to you within the next week. Now, many of you were requesting information on monkeypox. What was monkeypox? Is there a regulation on monkeypox? Is there a safe working procedure on monkeypox? What is it? Why have we not touched base on this? And so Brendan Reynolds from IOPSA said to me what we should do is just handle this within a Toolbox Talk setting, just taking a look at the very basic information of monkeypox. Now, again, if you need more information, we've gotten all of this from the National Institute for Communicable Diseases website, as well as the CDC's website, giving us all the information that we need to know based on monkeypox. Now, monkeypox is a rare disease caused by infection with what we call the monkeypox virus. And this is part of the same family of viruses as smallpox. Now, the symptoms are very similar to smallpox, but are a lot more milder, and it is rarely fatal. So it's not often that people are dying from monkeypox. But monkeypox is not related to chickenpox. All right, so it's a different gene or different strain of virus, but it is very similar to the smallpox virus. So the questions that were coming through from our members, first of all, is what is monkeypox? And then also, is it deadly? Now, infections within the strain of monkeypox virus identified in this specific outbreak, which happened now in 2022, is called the West African strain. And this is actually not very fatal. In fact, over 99% of people who get this form of the disease are likely to survive. Now, people with weakened immune systems, such as children under the age of 8, people with a history of eczema, and people who are pregnant or breastfeeding may be more likely to get either seriously ill or die. So it's not saying that a percentage of people die. It's just saying that a percentage of people might get more seriously ill, or perhaps it might be fatal for them. And that is because they have a weakened immune system. They are either very young, they have a history of eczema, or they are pregnant or breastfeeding. So again, with COVID-19, we had a very similar thing where we had to look at vulnerable people within our company and see if there was a possibility for those vulnerable ones, or those with comorbidities, those with a history of heart attacks, those with a history of certain illnesses, had more exposure to a specific disease. In that case, it was COVID-19. So our risk assessments, if you want to include monkeypox into your risk assessment, we also want to look at a very similar group of persons, those who might be affected or immune compromised due to their own comorbidities or own history of certain diseases. In this case, we look at somebody who has a history of eczema. And that's because monkeypox attaches to the skin. Now, although the West African strain is rarely fatal, symptoms can be extremely painful, and people might have permanent scarring resulting from the rash. So that is just very basic understanding. There's a lot more information on monkeypox. And if you'd like to know more, again, we're asking you just to reach out to us. Let us know what questions you have around this, and if there's any way we can assist you in designing something for your company. Now, the next question was the symptoms of monkeypox. What are the symptoms? So the basic symptoms are fever, 38 degrees and above, getting a headache, muscle aches and back pain, swollen lymph nodes, chills, exhaustion, and most commonly is this rash. Now, a rash that can look like pimples or blisters that appear on the face, inside the mouth, and on other parts of the body, like the hands, feet, chest, genitals, or anus. The rash goes through different stages before healing completely. The illness typically lasts 2 to 4 weeks, and sometimes people get a rash first, followed by other symptoms. Others only experience a rash. So the rash is probably the most common side effect here, or the most common symptom of monkeypox. And yeah, you can see a picture of basically what it looks like, these pimples or blisters that will appear all over the body. So these are the basic symptoms of monkeypox. And if you start seeing this, the next question, the last question that we received from you as members is, what if I have symptoms? What if I see any of these things? What is it that I need to do? Now, many of you will see a fever and say, well, I've got a fever, but that could just be the flu. That is correct. Symptoms of monkeypox does include fever, but please take a look out for that main rash that's starting to look like pimples or blisters. If that is the case, or if that happens, even if you have one of these symptoms and you are not too sure what to do, then what do you need to do? Well, the first thing, see a healthcare provider if you notice new or unexplained rash or any other type of monkeypox symptoms, then remind the healthcare provider that monkeypox is not circulating. So currently it's not circulating specifically in our area. Avoid close contact. So yeah, social distancing comes into place. Now, social distancing is included in COVID-19, and we might include that into the monkeypox virus as well. And more information will come out on the spread of this type of disease, perhaps close in the months to come, or if the disease starts getting out of control, including intimate physical contact with others until a healthcare provider examines you. Why is that? Well, this is starting to spread between close personal contact between people, or if you have a lot of face time with someone. So if you're standing talking to someone, and that is because it comes from the saliva or other parts of the body that excrete any type of fluid, and this could then aerate or aspirate into the environment and then attach itself to you. And as soon as it gets onto your face, nose, mouth, eyes, then it attaches itself to the body. Very similar to how we saw COVID-19 spreading, but just not over such a large portion of area. So it's close contact with these persons, as well as close contact with pets or other animals until a healthcare provider examines you. Now, if you're waiting for test results, please follow the same precautions. You'll need to isolate yourself. Perhaps just follow the healthcare's direction on this as well. If you test positive, you must stay isolated until your rash has healed. Now, we know it's between 2 to 4 weeks of healing, but this is different, and every case that comes in obviously is going to be slightly different. So what we encourage you to do is, again, follow the direction of your healthcare provider. So stay isolated until your rash is healed, scabs have fallen off, and the fresh layer of intact skin has actually formed. Now, we hope this has given you some basic information on monkeypox. There is a lot more information, more than what we can handle within just a few minutes session of Toolbox Talks. But this is the most pertinent information that you need. How do you prevent getting monkeypox? Well, it's basically the same as any other disease, like we've seen with COVID. Implement proper protocols to keep yourself clean. If somebody is sick, avoid contact with them. Isolate yourself if you are sick. So all of these things that we have learned from COVID-19 has assisted us in taking a look at other diseases that we might be exposed to and implementing similar or the exact same controls in order to prevent other types of illnesses. And this is all upholding the Section 8 of the ARSH Act, providing a working environment that is without risk to the health of employees. And this is really what we want to achieve. So again, coming down to our safety thought for the week, do it because you want to do it, not because you have to do it. The law says that you don't have to wear a mask when you are out in public. That is not specifically directed at employers. Employers, you still need to look at your own risk assessment and find out what your exposure levels are. But if you are in public and you realize you might be exposed to a lot of people, why put yourself, your family, your children, your parents at risk? Do it because you want to do it. not because you have to do it. So next week, we are taking a look at the appointment of health and safety representatives. Now, this is in accordance with the General Administrative Regulation Section 6, as well as your appointments in terms of Section 17 and 18 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. We're also going to give you a template for this, so look out for next week's Toolbox Talk. Then we'll have the final Toolbox Talks for this month, completing an Annexure 1 form, which is a record of incidents and accidents in a workplace. And finally, how to perform legal appointments. Where do they come from, and how do we actually do a legal appointment? A very big thank you to everybody who has obviously sent information through to me. Rudy, you sent me some awesome information also on other related topics to health and safety, and these are now going to come out in our Toolbox Talks. We had questions from you as our OPTA members in the terms of monkeypox, and we've tried to include that in here as well. So please continue to do that. We really do appreciate it. And any information or any questions you have, just direct it to us. There's my email address, info@ohss.co.za, or even WhatsApp me, 071-875-2070. If we can assist you, we really, really want to assist where we can. Thanks, Karim, and thank you very much to all of our participants this morning.
Thank you very much, Chris. And just a reminder to everyone that there will be a recording on the LMS system that will be up by 12 o'clock today. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and end the session now.